You don't need to feel less to trade better. You need to act regardless of what you feel. Everyone tells you to control your emotions, manage your fear, eliminate anxiety. That's impossible. Your emotions are automatic, hardwired, produced by systems you can't consciously control. You can't decide to not be afraid when money is at risk any more than you can decide to not feel pain when someone punches you. But here's what you can do. You can separate feeling from action. You can feel terrified and still click buy. Feel euphoric and still follow your exit plan. Feel desperate and still risk only 1%. Calm isn't a feeling. It's a pattern of behavior that happens regardless of feeling. The traders who look calm aren't calm inside. They're just executing despite the internal chaos. They've trained themselves to create space between stimulus and response, between fear and freeze, between greed and deviation. You've been trying to eliminate emotions so you can trade. You need to trade while having emotions. That's the skill. That's everything. So let me be really direct with you about why you're here and what's actually happening in your trading right now. You trade perfectly until money matters. Demo accounts are easy. Paper trading is flawless. You follow every rule, execute every setup, manage risk perfectly. Then you switch to real money and you become a completely different trader. Impulsive, emotional, breaking rules you didn't even know you could break, second-guessing setups that look perfect, freezing on entries, exiting too early because you can't handle the discomfort, holding losers too long because you can't accept the loss. The strategy didn't change. The market didn't change. You changed. Because real money activates your nervous system in ways fake money doesn't. And your nervous system doesn't care about your edge. It doesn't care about your analysis. It doesn't care about probability or statistics or any of that. It cares about survival. The core pain you're experiencing, the thing that brought you to this video, is that you know what to do, but you can't do it when it matters. When real money is at risk, when your account balance is actually on the line, when losses would hurt your rent payment or your car payment or your family security, your brain hijacks your execution. You become reactive instead of responsive, emotional instead of systematic, and you watch yourself break rules you swore you'd follow. You watch yourself deviate from plans you made when you were calm, knowing you're sabotaging yourself, but unable to stop. The gap between what you know and what you do widens the exact moment stakes become real. The core misunderstanding that's keeping you trapped is this. You think calm means not feeling fear or anxiety or uncertainty. It doesn't. Calm means acting systematically despite feeling all of those things. You've been trying to eliminate emotions so you can trade when what you actually need is to trade while having emotions. The traders who execute flawlessly with real money at stake aren't less afraid than you. They're not more confident. They're not emotionally superior. They've just developed the capacity to feel fear without letting fear dictate action. They've built psychological space between stimulus and response, between what happens and how they react to what happens. What I'm going to give you in this video are the specific psychological mechanisms that cause you to lose calm when real money is at stake, and the concrete practices that allow you to execute systematically despite emotional activation. Not vague advice about controlling emotions or staying disciplined. Those things mean nothing if you don't understand the actual neurological and psychological frameworks for why your brain treats real money differently than fake money. I'm going to show you how to identify your personal risk threshold, that specific dollar amount where your nervous system perceives existential threat, how to recalibrate your nervous system so you can execute your strategy regardless of account size, and how to create space between feeling and action so that emotions become information you observe rather than instructions you follow. Here's the unique insight that changes everything. Calm isn't a state you achieve before trading. It's a behavior pattern you maintain during trading. It's not the absence of fear. It's action despite fear. The mistake everyone makes is trying to feel calm before executing, waiting until the fear subsides, waiting until they feel confident, waiting until they feel ready. And they keep waiting because those feelings rarely come before action. They come after action. Calm is the result of proper execution, not the prerequisite for it. You execute first, mechanically, following your system, and calm follows as a byproduct of knowing you did what you were supposed to do. You've been waiting to feel ready. You need to act before you're ready. That reversal, behavior before feeling instead of feeling before behavior, is how you trade calmly with real money at stake. Every trading educator tells you to manage emotions, stay disciplined, don't let fear control you. All true but not actionable unless you understand the mechanism. Nobody tells you that your nervous system has a specific dollar threshold where it perceives existential threat. Nobody teaches you how to identify that threshold and deliberately trade below it until recalibration occurs. Nobody explains the neurological difference between cold calm, which is emotional suppression that leads to paralysis, and hot calm, which is emotional integration that leads to systematic action. This video gives you the actual mechanism, not just the motivation. And we're going to bust this myth wide open right now, that calm traders don't feel emotions. They do, intensely. They just don't let emotions choose their actions. They've created psychological space between what they feel and what they do. You can feel terrified and still follow your system, feel euphoric and still take profits according to plan, feel uncertain and still execute your next trade. Emotions are passengers in the car, not drivers. And until you understand that distinction, until you really get it in your bones, you'll keep trying to eliminate passengers instead of learning to drive with them screaming in the back seat. Let me tell you a story that I think is really going to land for you because it illustrates this perfectly. There's a professional poker player who described the exact moment he became profitable. Not when he learned strategy. He knew strategy for years before he made money. Not when he learned the math. He understood pot odds and expected value long before he became a winning player. The moment he became profitable was when he started treating his chips like they weren't money. In his mind, once he bought into the game, the chips became just chips. Pieces of clay, not dollars, not rent money, not car payments, not his kid's education fund, just pieces of clay he was moving around according to a strategy. If he lost them, he lost them. If he won more chips, great. But the chips themselves became emotionally neutral objects in his mind, and this shift, this psychological reframe, changed everything about how he played. This sounds simple, but it's incredibly profound, because the moment chips became money again in his mind, the moment he started thinking, that's $1,000 I'm betting, or that's $5,000 in the pot, his decision-making degraded immediately. He'd get tight, conservative, scared. He'd fold hands he should call because he couldn't stomach putting more money at risk. He'd check when he should bet, because betting meant risking chips that represented dollars, that represented security. The strategy was the same, the math was the same, the cards were the same, but his execution changed because the meaning changed. Trading is absolutely identical to this. When you think of your position as $5,000 at risk, your nervous system activates. Your amygdala, your fear center, interprets this as threat. Blood flows away from your prefrontal cortex, where rational decisions happen, and into your hindbrain, where survival instincts live. You become reactive instead of analytical. But when you think of that same position as capital allocated according to my system, it's emotionally neutral. Same trade, same dollar amount, different meaning, different neurological response, different execution quality. The challenge, of course, is that it is real money. You can't just pretend it's not. You can't gaslight yourself into thinking $5,000 doesn't matter when it does matter. But what you can do is shift what the money represents in your mind. It's not survival. It's not worth. It's not success or failure or validation or proof of anything. It's capital allocated according to a system. That's all. Capital doing. What capital does when deployed systematically within a framework that has edge. Let me give you another way to think about this because I want you to really feel this. Imagine you're walking a tightrope. The rope is stretched between 2 points. If that rope is 1 foot off the ground over soft grass, you walk normally, confidently. You might even joke around while you're walking. You might look at your phone. Balance is easy because the consequence of falling is zero. You fall, you land on soft grass, you get back on, no big deal. Now put that same rope 100 feet in the air between 2 buildings. Your balance doesn't physically change. You have the same coordination. Your body knows how to balance. Nothing about your physical capability is different. But your psychology changes completely, massively. Every small wobble feels like death. Your body tenses. Your breathing becomes shallow and rapid. Your focus narrows to just the rope and your feet. You can't think about anything else. And ironically, tragically, the tension makes you more likely to fall. The fear of falling creates the very conditions that cause falling. Professional tightrope walkers train themselves to walk at height the same way they walk at ground level. Not by ignoring the height. They can see the ground. They know they're high up. They're not in denial. But they've trained themselves to execute the same physical movements regardless of height. 1 step, breathe, look forward. Next step, breathe. The process is identical whether they're 1 foot up or 100 feet up. They feel the fear. Their nervous system absolutely knows they're high up, but they execute anyway. That's the skill. Not feeling less fear. Acting the same despite more fear. Trading with real money is walking at height. You can't eliminate the height. You can't pretend there's no consequence to falling, but you can train yourself to execute the same process regardless of height. To enter trades when you're risking $10,000 the same way you entered them when you were risking $100. Not by feeling the same, you won't feel the same. By doing the same despite feeling different. That's hot calm. That's emotional integration rather than emotional elimination. So if calm isn't a feeling but a behavior, if it's not the absence of fear but action despite fear, what are the actual mechanisms? What's happening in your brain when real money activates panic? And how do you create space between that activation and your response? Let me explain what happens neurologically when you trade with real money that matters to you. Your amygdala, which is the fear center of your brain, constantly scans every situation for threat. It's an ancient structure. It evolved when threats were saber-toothed tigers and enemy tribes, and it still operates on that same survival logic. When you risk money that your brain considers significant, money that matters to your survival in some way, the amygdala interprets this as a survival threat. It activates your sympathetic nervous system. Fight, flight, or freeze. This happens automatically, unconsciously. Before your rational brain even processes what's happening, the alarm is already ringing. When your amygdala hijacks your system, blood flow shifts from your prefrontal cortex, where rational decision-making happens, to your hindbrain, where survival reflexes live. You literally become dumber. Your IQ drops. Your ability to think strategically, to follow processes, to execute plans, to remember rules, all of that degrades because your brain has decided you're in danger. And when you're in danger, your brain doesn't care about your trading plan. It cares about survival. Here's the critical insight that changes everything. You can't prevent the amygdala from activating. It's automatic. It's hardwired. It's been there for millions of years, and it's not going away. But you can prevent it from hijacking your behavior. How? By recognizing the activation without believing it. Your amygdala says, danger, you're going to die, panic now. You observe, oh, my amygdala is activated right now. I'm feeling fear. That's interesting. You feel the fear without being the fear, without becoming the fear, without letting the fear choose what you do next. That observation, that tiny moment of recognition, creates space. And in that space, you can choose action based on your system rather than reaction based on your emotion. The emotion is still there. You're still feeling it. But there's a gap between the feeling and what you do about the feeling. And that gap is where trading mastery lives. Second mechanism you need to understand. Everyone has a specific dollar amount where money becomes real in a way that activates their nervous system. I call this your risk threshold. Below that threshold, you trade normally. Your execution is clean. Your head is clear. Above it, you panic. Your nervous system goes into threat mode. Your threshold is determined by your financial situation, your past traumas around money, your relationship with money, your self-worth, countless factors. But it exists, and it's probably smaller than you think. If your threshold is $2,000 and you're risking $3,000 per trade, you're in constant amygdala hijack. Your nervous system is always activated. You're always walking the tightrope at height. Every single trade feels like survival, but if you risk $1,000 per trade, you're below threshold. Your brain doesn't interpret that amount as survival threat. You can think clearly. You can execute calmly. Same market, same strategy, different position sizing, completely different psychology. The solution here, and this is crucial, is to identify your threshold through experimentation. Start with tiny position sizes, really small, smaller than you think you need, and gradually increase until you notice your execution quality degrading, until you notice yourself hesitating on entries, until you notice yourself deviating from your plan. That moment where execution changes, that's your threshold. Then trade below it. Not forever. Just until your nervous system recalibrates. Until your brain learns through repeated exposure that this amount at risk doesn't mean death. That you can risk this much and survive. That losses at this level are affordable. Thresholds can increase over time, but only through consistent positive experiences below the current threshold. You can't force your way through. You can't willpower your way to a higher threshold. You have to build evidence for your nervous system that higher amounts are safe. Third mechanism. Money means different things to different people. For some people, money means safety. If you have money, you're safe. If you don't, you're in danger. For others, money means worth. Your net worth equals your self-worth. For others, money means freedom or power or success or validation. Whatever money means to you, that meaning amplifies when it's at risk. If money means safety and you risk it in a trade, you're not risking dollars. You're risking your sense of safety. If money means worth and you lose it, you're not losing dollars. You're losing proof of your value as a human being. The reframe you need to internalize is this. Money in trading is a tool. It's capital allocated according to a system. It's not safety or worth or freedom or validation. It's just numbers on a screen representing risk and reward within a probability distribution. The more meaning you strip from money, the less emotional charge it carries. The less charge it carries, the calmer you can execute. This doesn't mean money doesn't matter. It means it matters only as a tool, not as an identity marker. Fourth mechanism, and this one is going to sound completely backwards. You've been trying to feel calm before trading, waiting until you're emotionally ready, until the fear subsides, until you feel confident, until you feel like you can handle it. And you keep waiting because those feelings rarely come before action. They come after action. Calm is the result of proper execution, not the prerequisite for it. The reversal you need to make is this. Execute first. Follow your system mechanically. Click buy even though you're afraid. Hold according to your plan even though you're anxious. Exit at your predetermined level even though you're tempted to hold for more. The execution comes first, the mechanical following of rules. And the feeling of calm follows afterward. After you've executed and survived. After you've followed the plan and it didn't kill you. You're building evidence for your nervous system that executing the system doesn't lead to death. That following the process is safe. Each successful execution, whether it wins or loses, is data that recalibrates your threat response. Fifth mechanism. When you're emotionally activated, when your amygdala is hijacking your system, your attention narrows. It's called attentional tunneling. You fixate on profit and loss, on your account balance, on the dollars at risk, on what you could lose. And this narrow focus amplifies anxiety because you're constantly reminding yourself what's at stake. You're feeding the fear by paying attention to it. Calm traders have learned to allocate attention differently. They focus on process, not outcome. They watch for signals, not dollars. They think about execution, not results. They ask themselves, am I following my rules? Is this setup meeting my criteria? Where is my predetermined exit? All of their attention is on controllable actions rather than uncontrollable outcomes. And that allocation of attention keeps them calm because they're not constantly triggering their own threat response. The practice here is simple, but requires discipline. During trades, every time you notice yourself checking profit and loss or account balance, redirect attention to process. What's my next rule-based action? What does my system say to do here? Keep attention on controllable actions, not uncontrollable outcomes. This isn't suppression. This isn't pretending the money doesn't exist. It's intentional attention allocation. You're choosing where to put your focus. And where you put your focus determines your emotional state. So if calm is about managing amygdala hijack, trading below your risk threshold, stripping meaning from money, executing before feeling, and allocating attention to process, how do you actually practice this? What are the specific drills that build this capacity? First practice, threshold identification exercise. Over your next 20 trades, track 2 metrics for each one: dollar amount risked and self-rated execution quality on a 1 to 10 scale. Be honest with yourself. After each trade, rate how well you executed your system, how closely you followed your rules. 10 means perfect execution, 1 means complete deviation. And look for the pattern. Look for the dollar amount where your execution quality consistently drops below 7. That moment where you start breaking rules, hesitating, deviating. That's your current threshold. That's the number where your nervous system perceives threat. Then, and this is crucial, deliberately trade below that amount for 100 trades. Give yourself 100 repetitions at a position size that feels too small. That feels like you're not really trading. That feels boring and safe. You're giving your nervous system repeated exposure to successful execution below threshold. You're building evidence that says trading at this level is safe. And that evidence, accumulated over many trades, gradually increases your threshold. Your brain learns this amount is okay. And eventually you can increase position size and your threshold moves with you. Second practice, pre-trade ritual. Before every single trade, 5 conscious breaths. This is non-negotiable. Inhale for 4 counts, hold for 2 counts, exhale for 6 counts. Slow exhale. While you're breathing, state out loud or in your mind, this is capital allocated according to my system. Outcome is unknown. Process is known. I am executing process. This ritual does 2 things. The slow breathing activates your parasympathetic nervous system, your rest and digest mode, which counteracts the sympathetic activation of fear. And the statement creates psychological space between you and the trade. You're reminding yourself what this actually is. Not survival. Process. Third practice, emotional labeling. When you notice anxiety, fear, or excitement during a trade, name it out loud. I notice anxiety. I notice fear of loss. I notice excitement about profit. I notice greed. Neuroscience research shows that labeling emotions reduces their intensity by engaging your prefrontal cortex. The act of naming creates observer perspective. You're not the emotion. You're the person noticing the emotion. And that distinction, that tiny shift from I am afraid to I notice fear, creates the space you need to choose action rather than being driven by reaction. Fourth practice, process-only journaling. After each trade, journal only on process execution. Did I enter according to my rules? Was my position sizing correct? Did I exit where I planned to exit? Score yourself. Give yourself a grade. Don't journal about whether you won or lost. Don't mention dollars made or lost. Only process, only execution quality. This trains your attention on what you actually control and gradually desensitizes you to outcomes you don't control. Over time, over hundreds of trades, you stop caring as much about individual wins and losses because you're measuring yourself on something different, on something you can control. Fifth practice, the 90-second rule. When you feel emotional activation, when you feel fear or greed or anxiety starting to take over, before doing anything, wait 90 seconds. Don't fight the feeling. Don't try to suppress it. Don't act on it. Just wait. Most emotional spikes dissipate within 90 seconds if you don't feed them with action. During those 90 seconds, breathe. Observe the sensations in your body. Notice where you feel the fear, your chest, your stomach, your throat. Just observe. After 90 seconds, if you still need to do something, execute according to system, not according to emotion. You've created space. You've let the spike pass. Now you can act from process rather than from panic. Let me bring this all together now because I need you to understand something that can change everything about how you trade. You came here wanting to know how to trade calmly when real money is at stake, wanting to know how to not feel fear, how to eliminate anxiety, how to become some kind of emotionless robot who can execute perfectly regardless of stakes. And what I've shown you is that calm isn't a feeling. It's a behavior pattern that happens regardless of feeling. It's not the absence of fear. It's action despite fear. You've been waiting to feel calm before trading. You need to trade before you feel calm. That reversal is everything. We walked through why fake money makes you a genius and real money makes you a different person. Because real money activates your amygdala, your fear center, which hijacks your rational brain and turns trading into a survival response. We looked at 5 mechanisms. Amygdala hijack that shifts blood flow from rational thinking to survival reflexes. Risk thresholds where your nervous system perceives existential threat based on specific dollar amounts. Meaning attachment that makes money about identity rather than utility. The behavior before feeling principle that says execution produces calm rather than requiring it. And attention allocation that keeps you focused on process rather than outcome. And we got practical with 5 exercises you can start implementing today, identifying your risk threshold so you can trade below it, creating a pre-trade ritual that activates your calming nervous system, emotional labeling that creates distance between you and your feelings, process-only journaling that trains attention on controllables, and the 90-second rule that prevents emotional impulses from dictating action. Here's what you need to understand at the deepest possible level. You will never feel completely calm when real money is at stake. You shouldn't. Some emotional activation is appropriate. It means you're engaged. It means the outcome matters. It means you're human. The goal isn't to eliminate feeling. The goal is to execute systematically, regardless of feeling. To create space between stimulus and response, between fear and freeze, between greed and deviation, between emotion and action. Your mantra, the thing I want you to say before every trade, the thing I want you to internalize until it becomes part of your nervous system, is this: I feel everything. I am controlled by nothing. Fear is information, not instruction. Anxiety is activation, not direction. I execute my system regardless of my state. I am not my emotions. I am the observer of my emotions. Calm is not the absence of fear. It is action despite fear. I do not wait to feel ready. I act mechanically, and calm follows. My nervous system is a passenger, not the driver. And I am learning to drive with passengers screaming in the back seat. This is the skill that separates traders who survive from traders who quit. Not better analysis, not better strategies, not better indicators or better patterns or better anything external, the capacity to execute systematically when your nervous system is screaming at you to stop, to feel fear and click buy anyway, to feel greed and take profits anyway, to feel uncertainty and trade anyway. That's the skill. That's the edge. That's what allows you to let statistical edge manifest over time, because you can execute consistently despite emotional activation. If this resonated with you, if you see that you've been waiting for emotional states that come after execution, not before it, if you recognize that your attempts to eliminate emotion have been the problem, not the solution, hit that like button. Not for me, for you. As a commitment to yourself that you're going to start executing before you feel ready, that you're going to identify your risk threshold and trade below it, that you're going to create space between feeling and action, that you're going to become the observer of your emotions rather than being controlled by them. Drop a comment and tell me, what's the dollar amount where trading stops feeling like a game and starts feeling like survival? Be honest with yourself and with me. Because that number, that specific amount, that's your risk threshold. And once you know it, once you can name it, you can work with it. You can trade below it. You can give your nervous system the evidence it needs to recalibrate. You can gradually increase it over time through successful execution. But you can't work with what you don't acknowledge. So name it. What's your number? And if you want more of this, if you want trading psychology that addresses the actual neurological and psychological mechanisms that control your behavior rather than just giving you motivational platitudes that mean nothing, subscribe. Because this is the real work. This is the work that actually matters. Building systems that account for how your brain actually works rather than pretending you can willpower your way through activation. Understanding your nervous system rather than fighting it. Working with your psychology rather than against it. You will feel fear tomorrow when you trade with real money. That's guaranteed. That's human. That's appropriate. Whether you act on that fear or execute your system despite it, that's the skill. That's what we're building here. That's what separates amateurs who let emotions drive from professionals who let process drive. Welcome to calm that's alive, not dead. Engaged, not numb. Feeling everything but controlled by nothing. That's hot calm. That's emotional integration. That's what allows you to trade with real money at stake without losing yourself in the process. Now go trade like someone who feels fear and clicks buy anyway, like someone who feels greed and follows their exit plan anyway, like someone who feels uncertainty and executes their system anyway. That's everything. That's the whole game. And you can do it, not by feeling less, by acting regardless of what you feel. Go execute your system. The calm will follow.